What's up, you guys? Thank you guys for watching the Modern Flow podcast. I'm so greatly appreciated about all the support and the listens and the referrals and the people that have jumped on the podcast. I just want to say thank you and appreciate you guys. And quick promotion. We got Peak Performance Academy, and if you're interested in working with me and performance coaching and life coaching, please let me know. Just book a discovery call. This is how we support the channel. This is how we support more podcasts, more guests. All this stuff takes time, and the best way you could support is hitting a like button, sharing it, commenting it, and tagging somebody on it, and just helping spread the message. This year, I'm really trying to make it 10 times the impact. So, yes, I'd love to hear from you. Book a discovery call. Refer this out to a friend of yours if you like personal development. And if this message resonates with you, I'll be greatly appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Flow podcast. My name is Sam Nang. I'm the host for the podcast. I'm a lifestyle and performance coach, hybrid athlete, and philosopher. We got a special guest here, and his name is Philip Ricardo Jr., the legend right here. This is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding. So today we're going to have a legend on our show, and I'm super excited to have you here because a little bit about the story is I ran into Philip at the gym, at one of the local gyms here, and I saw him with a Dragon Ball shirt. I was like, man, I got to stop and talk to this guy because I seen him in some of the promotions and everything, and I've been a natural bodybuilder for myself for a while, and you've been bodybuilding for a very, very long time, and you're in a different class, and you compete in the WNBF World Championships and the World Championships, and he's definitely elite, high performance, and all of this is done with no drugs, no performance enhancing drugs. So natural bodybuilding is a different world, and I wanted to bring him into our world and talk about his mindset, what got him here to where he is. He is a former Marine Corps veteran. He's a mentor in the fitness world. He's an inspiration to all of us. And he's still performing at high level in his age at 53, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was chatting with him and trying to coordinate this interview, and he was definitely heavy into his bodybuilding competition. And now it's a little bit eased off a little bit, right? I would say.
Yep, time, definitely.
Okay. And then he also has a show that he's promoting in April that's in Woodbridge. So he is a hometown hero. I consider him a hometown hero and a big fan of the Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
Yes. So please welcome Philip to the Modern Flow podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Sam. Man, so blessed to be here. Thank you so much. It was great seeing you in the gym, and now look at us. We're on a podcast, and it's great.
We are on a podcast. I like to make things happen.
For sure.
Yes. Please fill us in. The part of the beginning is just like my introduction and how I meet people and how I kind of get started on the conversation. But first thing that I remember about you, I started competing in bodybuilding about 8 or 9 years ago when I was 30. And I was competing in a natural bodybuilding competition. And I remember seeing a video of you just like posing. It was so natural. It was so fluid. And the amount of muscle density that you had on was like incredible, especially to see you at a natural bodybuilding competition. And you've been competing for like 3 decades, right? You started in 92. Is that correct?
92, that's correct. Yes.
Was that your first competition in 92?
My first one was in 1992. I was actually in the Marine Corps, stationed over in Japan. And it was a local show on the base, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I did it anyway, and I ended up winning my class. Didn't know how to pose or anything, but once you step on stage that first time, that bug hits you, and you just want to keep on going. That's how I felt, and 33 years later, I'm still trying to be in the game. Yeah.
You're definitely still competing at a very, very high level, which is incredible. And bodybuilding takes a lot of mental capacity, physical capacity, time, eating, and everything. And how, when you first started in 92, Who got you started, or was that just like a accident that you just started competing, or did somebody?
It kind of was an accident. I mean, loved football. Football is still kind of like my first love. And there's always, you always start as an athlete in something to get you involved in bodybuilding. And I always wanted to play college football, but, the Marine Corps came first, because my parents really couldn't afford college. And so
Yeah,
when I joined the Marine Corps and hoping to play some football, I just, during the week I was working out, then on the weekend I'm partying. But everybody in the gym saw that I had a, good physique, and this guy just entered me into this local show, and I had no idea really about bodybuilding except for, like you mentioned, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Boyer Coe or Lou Ferrigno in the magazines. And so the show was on the base. Somebody entered my name in. I was like, let me try it. And when I did it, I was surprised, because I definitely wasn't prepared. But when I was on stage, it was a culture shock, but it was so awesome just to see. Like, I got beaten by this Japanese guy who had to be like at the time I'm like 21, he was like 50 something. And his
yeah,
posing and his conditioning, I was like, wow, that's what I
it's
want to look
different.
like. And it was different.
Yeah,
And so I just fell in love with like an art form, seeing the different physiques and, how they were able to attain that level of conditioning and muscularity. So I was hooked from after that first show, especially when I was able to win my first really like individual trophy.
yeah,
It was just so awesome to achieve that. And then I kept on going and I got a lot of good feedback from the judges and the promoters and stuff. So from that point on, I just kept on doing it. And it wasn't until I got into the States when I started doing like, at the time there's only the MPC, so it's not tested.
yeah,
But there's some armed forces shows and things like that. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years until I finally found a drug-free federation. So I didn't do the WMBF, it's actually the PNBA, IMBA. I've done pretty much every federation, natural federation out there, which is a blessing that I had the success. But the ABA, PNBA, IMBA was the first one I did, and I was successful in that for the beginning portions, and I turned pro with them in 2003. And ever since then, I just had a really successful pro career,
yeah.
winning titles with them, NGA, IFPA, OCB, WPA, you name it, Musclemania. So it's been a nice wild ride, and I'm
I
just ready
bet.
to be shocked.
It sounds like win after win after win, and you just you have a knack for it, and you have the build for it. There's something that has the when bodybuilding calls, like there's some athletes that are just naturally like gifted. Of course, like there's still a lot of hard work in that you had to put into it. And so you were competing in the Marine or a little bit overseas, and then when the natural bodybuilding scene started picking up here, it was around 2003, and you kind of helped establish that. I would assume that since you're the champion and won a lot of titles and everything, and help kind of like
you
bring
know,
that.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I wouldn't say I started, but I think actually social media became
Mm,
a really big push for that because I was becoming successful from 2003 until maybe 2006, 7, and people like Lane Norton, right? He was on
yeah.
the blog posts, and so the blog posts were always about natural bodybuilding, who's the top people out there, and you'd run down the list of all the top WMBF guys, OCB guys, PFBA guys, and by the grace of God, my name was up in that as well. And then I ended up competing with him at the very first Yorton Cup,
With
um,
Lane Norton.
with Lane Norton. So he was in the heavyweight class, I was in the
Yeah.
middleweight class.
Oh, nice.
So we just became really good friends. He respected me and my physique, and I respected him. And I ended up doing a whole lot of different VIP camps with him because, we were just good friends. He tried to get the best of the best in the industry to go and just talk to whoever wanted to go to those camps and discuss all type of things with it when it comes to, science, muscle science, posing, nutrition. You have people like Dr. Joe Klemczewski, Brian Whitaker, et cetera, like the who's who. So I got to travel to Australia with him and all these different places, Tampa
Wow.
VIP camps. So it's like, because of natural bodybuilding, I think I was really able to just take advantage of so many things that probably most people wouldn't have been able to take advantage, especially with the success I had. So it's been
Yeah,
really
you
good.
definitely got some success, and the name Lane Norton, he's definitely a respected guy in the natural bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing that early experience and like how you established yourself in the world of natural bodybuilding, because I think before bodybuilding, it's definitely the for anybody that's listening, the difference between natural bodybuilding, open competition, these are drug tested. So even throughout like the year, you have to get drug tested, especially if you're the title holder and champion. So you gotta stay pretty clean. And for me, like the natural bodybuilding route has always seemed like the best route to go because it's. And I studied. I used to be on those bodybuilding.com forums. I don't know if you were
Yes,
on
come
there
on,
before.
yes.
It was like MySpace for like bodybuilders where you had
Right.
profiles. But then you could also, and I remember Lane Norton writing some blogs there, and that was like the old school way of how we actually got information. Now it's YouTube and social media. So there's a lot.
Right.
It has grown a lot with like social media, and now I think podcasting is such a great way to get other people's lessons, extractions, and how they went through that. So as you went through like all these competitions, what do you think set yourself apart? Was it just the mental discipline that you had, or uh, tell me what was like the guys that you were competing with and like who you were? What was like the difference between your mindset?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've even had that. I think mindset wise, I definitely think that helped. I know for me, I believe because when I was competing and I didn't know there's drug-free federations, even though I was drug-free, competing at the NPC level, I was like naive to think I can get to that level, even though they were enhanced. And so I was battle tested. I was battle tested going up against these guys who were on stuff. And so I had to try to do my best to kill my physique naturally to kind of almost get to their level. And, I kept seeing that the ones who were winning, you had size and, of course, conditioning. So I went to the point where I was always, even in the NPC shows, I was getting like third. I was always in the top five against even the enhanced
Yeah,
competitors and going to some really tough shows in California, which is kind of like the mecca of bodybuilding.
yeah, yeah,
I did some big shows like the Mr. San Diego, Max Muscle, etc. Um, but when I finally nailed the conditionings, I knew that would be maybe something that could set me apart. And then I went to the natural bodybuilding when I saw like I said, the IMBA. I was the first show I did. They were like, "Whoa, that looked like a
yeah,
freak," because I was different because I was so used to going. And then I went up against guys like Kyoshi Moody, who was also new on the scene. So then it was like me versus him. The rivalries were starting, and I went from going to like a local natural bodybuilding show to the bigger ones, the Team USA's, the Natural
yeah.
Universe, and then you see like, wow, there's drug-free bodybuilders who are just like on the same par as me, and I have to keep stepping it up. So it's that evolution of knowing like this guy is working harder than I am, so I need to, sacrifice sleep, make sure I'm eating clean as I can, like all the things that I have to do next level, and I can't coast, I can't relax. I have to keep looking, having that Rocky Four mindset where, I'm going against the Russian and I got to chop him
Yeah.
down, and I'm always the
It,
underdog. So that's
in
cool.
bodybuilding, you develop some absolutely great. Like when I started competing, right, really competing, and actually had like goals to compete and everything, and worked with a trainer or coach, and my mindset completely like revolution. Like I don't even say it was like an evolution of going
Yeah.
from like amateur. I'm not a professional bodybuilder yet, but that mindset change happens during competition, and when you get on stage and you're aiming for something, and the thing that I really want to understand is like as 20 years or it's about 30 years that you've been competing, right? What are those changes like first 10 years, second year, 30 years? I've been competing or I've been bodybuilding myself since 17 years old. I'm 39, but I'm finally getting to that place where like your muscles, like the difference between like you and other like bodybuilders, you're so grainy. Like you're dense, grainy. The conditioning was like crazy. Where how does your like body changes from like 30, 40s to like your of course you age, your testosterone and everything like changes and everything like that. Can you talk a little bit about those changes as you age or like age into bodybuilding?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's good. Like, I feel like when I was 28 was kind of the time when I was like growing into my own with getting some muscle maturity. I really feel like the more time you put in the gym, your body is just going to adapt to that constant stress, the breaking down of the muscle and then putting on the muscle. And I feel the cleaner that you eat, the way, if you watch your nutrition, if you have a super bulk off season to where you're eating trash,
Yeah.
and then want to get into that grainy, lean condition, it's going to be a lot harder, or it's not going to happen at all because you're putting on too much body fat. Your skin folds are going to be so thick that it takes a really long time. It's going to take like a 30-week diet in order for you to get your skin folds to be,
Yeah.
thin enough for you to see the graininess, see the vascularity. So I feel for me, after a while, I had to really refine my diet to the point where I couldn't go too far up when it comes to my like off seasons, stay within a certain fighting weight. And then that gave me more opportunities to step on stage against people because I was always in decent shape and ready to
Yeah.
battle. And I think that was the key for me, just to kind of like stay within, not saying I was like 10 pounds away because that's too much. You can't stay lean and gain muscle. But I feel like because of my training, supplementation and my nutrition, I was able to each year make those changes just naturally because I was always kind of in good shape. I didn't let myself go too much. And year after year, I just saw more things popping out, and I would focus on my weak points. If I saw something from another person that was close to me or could beat me, I would say, okay, I need to work on that. I need to work on that. I need to
Yeah.
improve on that because he's going to get me. And that was the way I kept focusing my whole training and nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that pinpoint, that accuracy, that precision. I remember hearing you saying and speaking about this strategy in the documentary Natty for Life, right? The
Generation
Generation
Iron.
Iron.
Yeah.
Yes. That was such a good documentary. I don't want to ruin this if anybody's listening to it, but it's so
Yeah.
good. It's from the makers. I believe they were the makers from Pump and Iron or similar, right? Studio.
Yes, very similar. Yeah, Generation Iron's done like so much. They've done kind of a spin-off from Pumping Iron where they had pretty much like the Phil Heaths and
Yes, yes.
all those
I've
guys.
seen all of them. Almost
Yeah,
everyone.
and finally
The
this one.
Generation Iron one, two, and then when they did the one, and I was like, oh man. And then actually, I mean, that was like before I even actually like knew who you were. I knew who you were, but then when I watched the documentary, I was like, represented. It showed you that that you were local. It showed you in front of the
Yeah, the
monuments,
monument.
and
Yeah.
it really showed that underdog personality. Like the Rocky Four
Yes.
personality, because the your guy that you were competing with was Robert
Robert.
Terry, right?
Ooh, yeah.
He was
6 foot
massive. I
four,
was like,
huge. Yes, he's a specimen. I tell you, he's a freak of nature. So it was scary going up against him. But
yeah,
once again, you have that mentality, that you just got to go out there. And honestly, I didn't have any expectation. I was really happy just to be part of the documentary, to be honest with you, because at the time I'm 48 years old. I didn't know how much I had left of me. Really was kind of in retirement mode, and there was so much going on in my life, which I don't know if we have time to go over. But 2019 was a very pivotal moment in my life in so many ways. But
yeah. Feel free to
just for
talk
me
about it. We have this is why we podcast is so we could get into the down and dirty of like the struggles and stuff. The challenges is where people see the wins and stuff. Like people see my wins, but the challenge is where it really gets people, to overcome that. But yeah, if you feel free to share any of the challenges that you faced during that time.
Yeah, so for me, during that time, I've been divorced, and I got divorced during that time frame. And it's really after the 2017 season where we were just having struggles, and going through divorce is tough, and I not being able to see my kids and traveling back and forth and just so many other different things happening. And during that same time, my mother got sick and she passed away
Mm,
2018. Then my father passed away 2019, that same year.
wow.
And at that same time, like I said, going through divorce, and my ex-wife was going on a trip, and I was trying to take care of my funeral arrangement for my dad, and I got into a major car accident. 'Cause I was like on the phone trying to like, schedule the funeral things, and then it was like, oh my goodness. And then, because I was trying to go and get my kids. Anyway, after that, I think a week later, I lost my job. So it was like
Oh,
everything that bad could happen to you,
everything.
yeah. So I had.
It always seems like that. I mean, that happened to
Mhm.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, so at that time, I felt spiritually attacked. I love Jesus Christ, and he's been like one of the he really I became super close to him during that time frame because I had nothing at the time. I was just speechless, um, with what's going on in my life, and I know that he was just trying to really grow me in this time of need and have me need him versus, sometimes when you do bodybuilding, it can be a very selfish sport. Like it's all about me trying to get in shape, trying to step on stage, do this. And that can be taxing on relationships, taxing on just everything. I had to humble myself. And so during that time, I was driving Lyft, in Uber to try to make money. I met my current wife, like just by chance during that time. And we went to, and she's a beautiful Korean woman. I know that you're
Yeah.
Cambodian. So it's like, and she is just the love of my life. So things happen for a reason, right? And, during that time with me meeting her, and she didn't even care that I didn't have a job at the time, and I finally got my job back in June. Then I was approached by the INBA, PNBA to be on Generation Iron 4, and during that time I had to train, even though I didn't have a job, and I just trained and got myself ready as I could for that competition and the interviews and everything else that happened. And, they followed me around to my new job. They followed me around to my house. Um, and when I saw, Rob Terry, and I had actually judged him the year before, and I
Uh-huh.
saw how huge he was and his muscle, and I was like, how can I beat this dude? But then I kept picturing myself and saying, okay, I judged him. I saw this. Maybe I can get him in this. And that was kind of my tactic that I used for the remainder of the year going into the show. And my wife now, um, she was there during my journey and she didn't know anything about bodybuilding. So she's
Uh-huh.
like looking at everybody. She's like, you're too small to be, she didn't think I was going to be able to beat them. And she was looking at like just trying to figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm eating certain foods. And when she would help me make my food, she'd put seasoning on that I wouldn't want because that's going to mess up my conditioning. So it was hard for her to get used to my kind of
Yeah.
mindset of how to. And finally, when she saw me on stage, she's like, "Oh, now I see why you did what you did." Because she said that she saw me stood out after all. It was a class of like 27 pros,
Right.
right? All in one class from all over the world. And of course, Rob Terry, he's the previous champion, so he was the guy to beat. So for me to step in there against him, and there's Siobhan Cunningham, who's a WNBF Pro World Championship. There's a whole bunch of incredible athletes, and for me to pull out that victory, it was just, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge
No,
blessing.
I
Yeah.
mean we're probably like whoever's listening to the podcast, but
Oh, yeah, ruined it.
Philip Ricardo
Yeah.
Jr., the legend, pulls off the win like the
Yeah.
underdog, the Rocky story. It was definitely like a Rocky story. It was like the way the hearing that from your end, like because in the documentary it goes a little bit into that, but it doesn't go into as depth as to like you talking about your divorce and what you had to deal with, and there's a lot of personal stuff that you had to deal with when you're competing on a high level. Like nobody's just like, oh, you compete at a high level. Your wife or your partner at the time was like, you're Philip Ricardo Jr., just a regular person as well too. But in like the eyes of other people, you're different. But to your family, to your a husband, you know, you're this person. And also, I think one thing that I want to touch on is your how you got out of there through finding your spirituality through Jesus and your church, and you give back a lot. Because I think I remember when I was chatting with you in the at the gym, you were like, I gotta go to church. How consistent is your church? How consistent is, I'm pretty sure is like you have it on lock. But
Yeah.
what is the schedule, or like how do you fit it into your lifestyle right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just become very important to me, and it wasn't before. So
Yeah.
it's just like you kind of mentioned. I've heard you on your podcast about, the mind muscle connection and just spirituality and everything else. It's one of those things where you have to kind of make it a priority if it's something that's important to you and something that's going to be a positive part of my life. And that is a positive part because there's so many negative things that we can be doing. And before I got divorced and even in my Marine Corps times, there's a lot of, not positive things I was doing. And so I just feel through Jesus's, just work in my life, I feel that is what has been the positive change where, things before were happening to me just negatively because of my own doing. I can blame somebody else, but the reality is me. And so once I was able to get into his word, it really helped me to just like focus on those things that are positive, that are growth inspiring. And I use those things in my life to just live my life in a good way And I hope that people can see that through me, whether I'm at work, whether it's with my family, my kids, just to be that light. And I feel because of that, that makes me go to church. It's a very big part of my life. Like I saw you was on a Wednesday, had a Wednesday Bible study. Tuesday, I do a church service with my wife because we're part of a Celebrate Recovery Christian ministry group. Um, this Saturday, I'm going to a church leadership
Yeah.
seminar that's going on. Then, of course, Sunday's church. So, and every morning, I read my devotionals and I send it out to all of my church friends and people that I know that are, Christians or just want something that's like, life inspiring. So I do my best because I know that whatever word comes to me and if it's affecting me in a positive way, that I want to share that to other people.
Yeah, that's powerful. I appreciate you sharing that, especially going through the divorce and where you actually turned into Jesus. I turned into spirituality as well too, and I grew up going to Christian churches and learning from that. But as you get older, you kind of forget about it, and then
Yeah.
when life
Yeah.
smacks you in the face. I think everybody
Yeah.
will come to that come to Jesus moment where you're like, you're not as uh, good as you think. You know, life will always humble you, and I think that's part of the journey as well too. And we're glad you overcame it, and now you have a blended family, and still incorporating your. Yeah, I say it's goodness. Like when you start to get into the spiritual work and to church and like leaning more into your faith, you become more of a good person and start to realize like a lot of the stuff is more about giving back. And for me, like this is part of the podcast. I went through very similar situation where I bodybuilded, and then life hit me with like a ton of bricks, especially during like the
Yeah.
pandemic. Lots of
Mm.
changes. Similar in like this podcast is not about me, but similar situation like unemployment, divorce, the pandemic. It's a struggle, but the one thing I do want to say is the weight room got me through a lot of the stuff. And and
Yeah.
knowing you and me as a bodybuilder, a lot of that stuff like gets us through it. That those difficult times, it gives you that little space of like, how can I make my life better in this little amount of time so it could translate into like other areas. Um, of your life. So it sounds like, I mean, it's such a big part of your life and your career of like training hard and doing that. What keeps you now motivated? You're 53 years old, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now
Yeah.
you got family. Is that what keeps you kind of going?
Um, what keeps me going, honestly, is that I love it. That's the bottom line. Like, it's a true part of my life because, from that age of 21 when I started getting into bodybuilding, I love the way it makes me feel, the way it makes me look. I feel like if I don't go to the gym, if I don't take care of myself, I just don't feel right. It's the biggest stress relief. You've mentioned it before in your other podcast about,
Oh yeah.
dopamine and the, adrenaline rush, all that stuff that you need. And I feel like you either have you can either have everyone seems to have some kind of habit or something that they like to do, right? You can have a negative or bad habit, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or you can fill that space up with doing something positive, like going to the gym and taking care of your body. So, by the grace of God, I'm happy that I have that as my kind of like addiction, but I love to do it. My wife even knows I'm always going to go to the gym, and she knows I'm a happier and nicer person when I do so. So I do it for that reason first and foremost. I want to definitely see my kids grow up and have families of their own, and I want to be active enough. I want to have that quality of life when I'm 60, 70 to still be able to pick up my grandkids and do stuff with them, go for walks, travel. And with my parents both passing away so young, I don't want to repeat that kind of, history within my, my ancestry or whatever. So I want to be a good example of health and vitality. Being part of the natural bodybuilding, community, you'll see so many people now that are in their 60s, 70s still competing. And for me, um, that motivates me to keep going. And I
Hmm.
had a good year last year competing. Um, and even though I still know I'm not like I used to be, I feel like I can still make improvements and keep on going for years to come.
Yeah. The last competition. So you compete in seasons or like seasons, right?
Yeah.
I think I was talking to you on Instagram. You had
Yeah.
gotten like 6 titles. Is that how many competitions was that you competed in? Like three or
So
four?
I think it was four because I did the East Coast Classic, which was in Connecticut. Then I did the Mr. America. Then I did the World Cup, and then I did the Natural Olympia. And so with those competitions, I do, the Grand Masters team because that's the 50 plus, and then I,
Yeah,
try to throw my hand into the open division as well. So that's what happened in most of the shows. One of the shows I didn't do two classes, but that's why I got like either the first, second, or third in with those shows. But to be top three, at this age is definitely still a blessing. But of course, I would love to win everything, but I have to look at what can I have improved on, what could I have done better.
yeah,
I saw that a lot of my injuries started to kind of creep up on me when it came to certain areas of my physique. So I'm just gonna recalibrate, and whenever I do step on stage again, hopefully I can bring a better
yeah.
package or something that's going to be a little different to, keep me at a higher level.
You're very strategic with your thought. One strategy I know you mentioned, and it reminds me of my Marine Corps boss. His name was Henry. He would always say, "If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready." So I think you remember you're talking about. You just stay within striking distance, right?
Yes.
You don't get too out of shape. You don't.
No.
Even if you miss a couple workouts, like for me, that has always been my strategy to like stay within striking distance. Like, okay, I don't get like, and we were talking earlier about like getting too fat. I went through that
Right.
phase where like
Right.
I bulked too
Right.
much. It took
Right.
forever to get on, but staying
Yes.
within range and always improving on the on the off season and the strategy and how you think about how you approach it changes. I think as you do different competitions, you get different strategy, you get different experiences and everything. Can you tell us a little bit? Was there like a favorite competition or like an experience that you had on stage that really like stood out to you when you were competing?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think I probably can narrow it down to about three or four major shows in my career because I've had so many amazing, and it really has to do more with the competition, not like the actual title, but
Yes,
who I
yes,
went up against. It had more to do with like if I'm going up against the top guys. And back in the day, I believe it was one of those things where, just like you were talking about bodybuilding.com forums, and they would have like, okay, who would win if it was this person versus this person. So back in the early days, like the, early 2000s, there was like the me, Kyoshi Moody, Doug Miller, Cleveland
yeah,
Thomas, Moji Alua, who else? Martin Daniel, Siobhan Cunningham, so Brian Whitaker, those types. So when I was able to step on stage with a few of those guys, even Mishak Ochang, obviously everyone knows him with Mishak as
yeah,
well. So the first big show definitely would be the 2007 Yorton Cup because that was the very first Yorton Cup pro division. And so I went up against Doug Miller when he was very young, Kareem Petaway. There was like about 17 pros in that class. And for me to come out in that show and win the Yorton Cup, the very first one, it was like a surprise. And once again, I came in feeling like an underdog because the week before Doug Miller had won and he just looks crazy because he's just huge, he's just
he's
thick,
got
dense
his
built.
muscle mass is ridiculous.
It's
I've seen
ridiculous.
him, and he's a
Yeah.
local. I think he lives local
He
as
is
well too.
local. Yes, yes. I think he just moved to North Carolina, but he was local, and we used to go to his Christmas parties and houses and stuff. He has Core Nutritionals, which is a great nutrition brand.
Yeah,
But going up against him, that was like a huge, huge battle. So great show there. I think my second one was another show. It was IFPA, but it was held by the WMBF's promoters, and this was in California. And that's one where it's me versus Kyoshi Moody versus Cleveland Thomas versus Moji Alua and
wow.
Penix Pierre. And that was such a stacked show. And once again, it was like hyped up. And once again, I was able to come out on top the first time ever beating Kyoshi because he had beaten me two times before that. And he's had the best of me in our career. But for me to beat him for the first time ever at that show was a huge accomplishment. It was funny because after that, we went out to have McDonald's, to celebrate and stuff together, because we were good friends and stuff. So that was a big show. And of course, the Next one would be obviously 2019 because that was the Generation Iron show going up against, Rob Terry
Rob
and
Terry.
everyone else, just everything else. So that was another big show. But there have been so many. 2015 Natural Olympia was a good one too because I feel like that was the best package that I brought in my career because I had the size and condition I needed to beat guys like Meshack and Martin Daniels and Michael Waddington's a huge class there of like 28 pros again in the Natural Olympia. So yeah, there's so many memories, so many
Yeah, yeah,
memories.
yeah. I mean, you could probably talk about like I know some of the names. I don't know everybody's names in it, but I do know Mishak Ochang.
Yeah.
I do know Doug Miller and some of those guys. But yeah, like man, being able to share stories of that or like hearing stories is it's so cool. I think I'll share one of my favorite stories. Like I didn't win the overall title in one of this competition. I got super close to winning. The pro title because I'm still a natural body or amateur, right? Still just putting in the work. And it was an OCB competition, but the conditioning, the level of conditioning that I got to was so like nuts. It was great. And then I was competing, I had won my division and I was competing for the overall title. So it was first and second. I ended up coming second, but the judges kept us on stage for like I don't know if it was. It felt like 10 minutes, but they were they asked me to pose like everything. There was like even poses that I didn't even know how to do. Like they were like calf spike. I was like, I've never done a calf spike before. Side serratus. I was like, I was practicing only some of the regular moves, but I ended up winning it and I recorded it, and that was like one of my favorite competitions. I had won almost all my like novice, open, or my class, and I got second, but very close. But it gave me that little thirst. I was like, I'm not ready to, I still have more left in my tank, and it's just been deciding and being strategic about when I compete and how I balance my life with like growing my own business and my own personal development and going through my own struggles. But also, like, I think right now where I'm at an age where like this is who I am. I've always been a bodybuilder, and like this is your identity, and everybody knows that you have a passion for it and you love it and you speak about it. And even having like a bodybuilding world champ on here is like so amazing for me. It's like super exciting. I've been looking forward to it as well too. But yeah, I think that is awesome. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about our favorite
Love it, love it, love it.
about
Yes,
Dragon Ball, like the
yes.
philosophy behind it. When did you start watching Dragon Ball, and how did you fall in love with it?
Well, this is a really cool story because, like I said, I was stationed in Japan. That was my very first duty station back in 1990. And my friend that I worked with, he was a black guy married to a Japanese girl.
Hmm.
And he was such a cool dude. And he would invite me to his house. And at the time, it was Dragon Ball. I don't even think it was Dragon Ball Z yet. It was when Goku had the tail. He's a little kid. He's got a
The
stick.
original Dragon
And he's
Ball
with the original Dragon Ball.
when he was a
And
kid.
Master Roshi, he's a little kid, yeah. And with the tail, then he turned into the big gorilla, all that stuff. So it was in Japanese, so I didn't really understand, but at the same time, you really don't need to understand too much because you can see the fight scenes and everything else, and you just get to know the characters. And he knew a little bit, and his wife would like explain too. And from that point on, it's like every week, I would go to his house and we'd watch every single episode. And I was stationed there for like 3 years. So from the first year to third year, I finally got up to when Vegeta came out there, and he's trying to, you know, it was
Oh,
Vegeta and
into the Z
Frieza.
Saga. You went into the
Yeah, the
Z
Z
Saga. Yeah,
Saga started, yes. And
yeah.
I kept watching it all the way until like the Cell series. Like I've seen every single series, every single movie. Like I was addicted. I'd go and buy the CD, the DVDs, and everything just to watch because just the fighting, just to see the physiques on these guys. And I feel like that's why Dragon Ball Z even now is so popular because you see the musculature of
Yeah.
Goku and the entire crew. Those guys are just built and they have so much power. Like they have powers of a god. So there's nothing more like motivating than to see something like that and just kind of like who doesn't want to have that power. And I think everyone that likes to work out kind of can vibe to Dragon Ball Z and Goku.
Yeah. I think the Saiyans they mastered the art of the level up, and bodybuilding is about the level up. And when I started watching Dragon Ball, same, I watched the original Dragon Ball with Goku as a kid, and just having that fighting spirit. And as they evolved into the Z series, that's when they were a little bit more grown up and more like. That's where I really fell in love with Dragon Ball, with the Dragon Ball
Yeah.
Z saga. And I grew up. I love Goku. As I got older, I was like, all right, so here's Goku, and then and then I
Oh my
and then I
goodness.
started liking Vegeta, and then I was like,
Yeah.
why don't they put more
I know
Broly?
Broly, right?
Broly's like my favorite,
Yeah.
you know.
Broly's a big, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I loved all of them, and each their own. They all have their own characteristics and status, but I think for me the level up of like extension of being able to push past like limits of like what they can't see, and having to work with other trainers, gods, mentors, teachers, like like having like seeing Goku as like Master Roshi was his original, and now it's like his mentor is Beerus or
Beerus and Whis.
Red
Whis.
Whis, like they're
Whis on the
gods.
other
Like
side. Yeah.
he's
Oh yeah.
leveled up into like these levels of like ascension and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, the saga is so amazing. I love it. Which one is your favorite character?
Ooh, that's tough. I still say Goku. I was liking Trunks at first for a while too, but I feel like when it comes to someone like Trunks and Gohan, even though they are like some of the coolest characters, they never are able to like level up to the point where Goku and Vegeta are.
Yeah,
They're not getting that, Ultra Instinct or Ultra, with the UE that
yeah,
Vegeta's able to get. So if they were, I probably would like somebody like Trunks and Gohan, but yeah, you can't when you see the way Goku and Vegeta, they'll get beat down so badly, they're on the brink of death, and all of a
oh
sudden it
yeah,
taps into something in them that like pushes them to that next level. So exactly what you said, that's what really makes the series so like, addictive to see because I love to see them reaching that when they're down for the count, about to be totally wiped out. Something inside them just brings out that next level to help them to win that battle. And that's kind of what we try to do in the gym, on stage, or every area in life. And so,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's for me, it's like a metaphor, and like I went more deep into that philosophy older, or like now, like I love
Yeah,
the philosophy behind it,
yeah,
and like and I love that you mentioned that Goku and Vegeta are the OGs, right? They're the
right.
OG Saiyans, like,
Yeah.
and the one, like one of my favorite characters, like Loki, is like Gohan, but
Yes,
yeah, like you say, he doesn't have that like instinct of just like a fighter spirit, like full time. Like
yes,
Goku and Vegeta are definitely full time warriors. Like Gohan is
right.
definitely like part time warrior whenever he needs to.
Yep.
But in each their own. That I think my favorite movie is the Broly movie with
Yeah.
Broly and Vegeta and Goku, putting all three of them. And I looked at it, I was like, there was like 10 to 12 level ups in one movie. And I was like, it's insane.
Yeah, that was like the best. I think that's one of the best anime movies I've seen too.
Yeah, the animation was so good. And I
Yeah.
think they're putting out, from what I saw online, they might be putting out another movie this year. So, which is,
Oh, I hope so.
yeah, exciting, exciting. Well, let me ask you a few questions
Yes.
about uh, like your favorite bodybuilders right now, whether it be open, natural, federation, or how do you see bodybuilding as a whole? Because there's that open division, which is you still got to give it it's like accolades because that's what opened up bodybuilding too.
Totally agree.
I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
hear like how do you see bodybuilding now as like open, natural, and some of your favorite bodybuilders that has inspired you or you know influenced you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, when I first started out, especially like the early 90s, I mean, before I knew about like the difference between enhanced and not, it's always like Sean Ray. I wanted to be like Sean Ray because I had like a similar light skin look like him.
Yeah.
And then Flex Wheeler comes out and his physique is like beautiful, perfect, like
Oh,
art,
Flex Wheeler had a great physique.
and his physique was like ideal. And it was a shame he never got the Mr. Olympia title because Ronnie Coleman came and wrecked it, because he was just
Yeah.
so muscular. But there were guys like that were kind of my, my idols, I'd say. And then even like Phil Heath when he came out, I thought he had like such a powerful, just that grainy condition, but just thick, good muscle. But of course, when I started really getting more into natural bodybuilding, I started to really focus more on who my top, like, natural bodybuilders were. And it was always, like I said, the Doug Millers, the Kyoshi Moody's, Meshack, Martin Daniels. Nowadays, especially now that I'm older, I've seen that the physiques in natural bodybuilding are just like evolving like ridiculous. Everyone
They're ridiculous.
nowadays, natural bodies, it looks great. They all have shredded glutes and hamstrings and just like crazy muscle. And there's so many, especially surprisingly, if you go and look at the ones that are out there in the UK, I feel like they're really bringing up, it used to be always really the Americans, but the
Yeah.
UK got just
I see some of the Korean
the
some of the
Korean
guys on
ones.
social media, the Korean guys are like
Mhm.
Korean folks are putting on some muscle and competing in some of these
Yeah,
competition is good because I'm Asian. It's like Asian
right.
guys aren't as thick or dense.
Correct. Yeah,
So
but they
we're
have,
like that's where I kind of struggle with is like I'm not as dense, but
yeah,
the conditioning I could come in with some really good conditioning. That's where that strategy comes in. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I like all kinds of bodybuilding and
right.
learning to tap in, talking to people about their own experience and what they see. Are you a
Yeah.
fan of, and I could tell you some of my top favorites as well too, and I love to share because I've been following bodybuilding since Arnold Schwarzenegger, like pumping iron was
Yeah.
definitely one that influenced me a lot. Arnold, that era of bodybuilding was so good.
Oh yeah.
I think
Oh yeah.
very, very aesthetic. I think you had like different bodybuilding eras. The golden era of bodybuilding of Arnold. Zane was so good,
Yeah,
for
Frank
being
Zane.
like a
Yeah.
smaller guy. And that's like,
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, his symmetry was good. And then I think Arnold, I don't know, he just had everything put together. And that's
Yeah.
why I was such a fan of his.
That
And
size
then you
too.
got the mass monsters,
Yeah.
some of my
Yeah.
favorite
The
mass
original.
monsters. I mean, like your level of conditioning and graininess, I would say over the matches, like to like Ronnie Coleman, like
Oh,
that level of graininess is crazy. And then I love Dorian. I like Dorian just because
yeah.
of his mindset. He was just
Right.
he
Yeah.
really was like a savage, and I was like, damn,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do you get to that like level of savagery? And
True.
I
I
just
mean,
listening to his documentary and just watching some of his motivational videos. And one of my other favorite is now most recently he just retired is Chris Bumstead. Um, I'm a fan of Chris Bumstead because he's so low key and humble. And now that we have social media, is that I was actually like been following him and listening to his YouTube, and like you could see how humble he is from the inside. And it's crazy. Like when I used to watch videos of like Ronnie Coleman, I used to think Ronnie Coleman was like an asshole or anything, but like he's like this super like happy, jolly dude.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
when they started opening up, I was like, dude, he's super fun.
It's funny you say that too because when I was in the military, stationed in California especially, Jay Cutler was huge, right? He was just getting to the point before he won his first Mr. Olympia, and I used to think because he wasn't really like talking that much that he was like unapproachable and
Yeah,
stuck up or whatever. He would guest pose at a lot of the local NPC shows, and my Marine team of bodybuilders, we would like go and have a booth and try to like to promote the Marine Corps. Anyway, one time he came to our booth and just like gave us free DVDs and just come talk to us. Like he was always like the coolest one. He did it on multiple occasions. And so I became a huge fan of him. And if you see some of his stuff now, like he's like kind of a comedian. He'll go out and do like these little skits and stuff. Like he's a fun, really fun guy. Like so I'm a huge fan of Jay Cutler. Like he's a
yeah,
not just the physique, but like you said, someone who's humble and kind and you can tell they have a good heart. that beats out anyone who has a unbelievable physique, but they're
Yeah.
jerks.
I
So
mean, like that, I love that type of like conversation. I met Jay Cutler in
yeah,
Richmond at his show, and I sat
yeah,
and chatted with him. But yeah,
right,
he was promoting the show, right? Or
yeah,
I believe the show promoter. He took the time to chat with me, and I told him a little bit about like my bodybuilding career, and he was talking about like we were talking about like different federations and everything, but like super like yeah, you think like he's like this person that like kind of like an asshole, but like he's
right.
quiet but like low key, like nonchalant, super funny. I watch his videos all the time. Like he's just, but like, it's great to see like the personality behind it as well too.
Right,
And because you see people on the stage like, damn, they're a monster, you know.
right. You can't
But at
approach
the
him.
end of the day, we're all people trying to be our best as well too.
Amen.
But tell us a little bit about in you've been doing your own promotion in Woodbridge, right? You have a show that you promote. Have you been doing it for how long? 11 years?
So this will be the 11th year this year, and
11th year.
it's very tough.
Hi guys, take
I much
two.
rather be on
So
stage competing than promoting a
I
show. It's a lot of
apologize to
sacrifice,
Philip Ricardo
a lot of
Jr.,
work.
the legends,
But I
but
thought it's one of those
the
things where,
electricity, the
because
internet went out,
I've
and the
competed in
last eight
pretty much
minutes
all the
of the
federations,
show
national federations,
was
but
of
the
Philip
INBA, PNBAs
speaking
were,
got cut
I
short,
kind
and
of
I sent
laid
him a text
my
message after
allegiance
the
to.
Facebook or after the Riverside recording. Sent him that we didn't get his clips, and I apologized, and I told him why and what happened, and he was like, "No worries," and shot us two video clips to answer the last two questions. The last question I talked about is I asked him, and he stopped where he was promoting his show. It's an international show that he's been promoting, and this is his 12th time promoting it. It's an international one, and it's a grind. It sounds like it's a grind, but he tells a little bit about it, and it's in Woodbridge, Stafford, Virginia, and he tells you a little bit about it. The show will be linked as well too, and he's definitely a pioneer, promoter, ambassador of natural bodybuilding, which is awesome. And he's been competing way before CrossFit was a thing, and talking about I think it was 92 or 99 or 2002. 2003 was when he went pro, so he's been competing for over 3 decades. That's a lot. That's like LeBron. Like he's 53, still competing. Literally, like I told him, I was like, when's the best time to catch up? Because he was heavy in his season when I first saw him, and he was definitely in the grind. You could see he was in the grind. And then we finally caught up for this podcast. It's February 7th or the 9th that we recorded, but it gets released in a later time. But February 9th. So he squeezed me in, and I didn't want to inconvenience him because I screwed up. It wasn't me that screwed up. Like I apologized and said, what happened, and he was so kindly to respond back with two video clips, and we're just gonna clip it in there. And because the wisdom was so good that I had to jump on here and record this podcast and be like, this shit was so good. And I sent him this, and I also upgraded my video and some of my audio quality. So I'm excited, slowly like make things, improve things. And that philosophy that he talks about and that we talk about in the podcast is how it relates to other things, and how like it's actually like bodybuilding is really just, for me, it's like a metaphor. For him, he said it's like a front. It's to hide all that pain, that illusion that you're putting on. And for us as bodybuilders, as people that like are looking for to be the best, like bodybuilders, you don't go in there trying to be a regular person. Like it's not for everyone. And the mindset that he provides, the level of clarity, the level of peace is like super, super inspiring. It helped me a lot this weekend because I was going and dealing with a lot of my own like energetic emotions and stuff, low vibes, burnout, like just life, and being having there having this conversation, like a healing conversation, and then also having him send that message to me was like, man, really helped out a lot. It was like big. And I hope this podcast, like if you guys ever listen, like re-listen it. I'm gonna listen to this over and over and over because I think this one's gonna be definitely in my top favorite. Hopefully the audio is good, but that's the thing I've been working on, is getting the audio and the video good. But that's the Modern Flow podcast. Is we're flowing, we're just getting better as we go. And for me, when I saw him posing, I was like, that is flow. And having him be on a podcast and do that was like super cool. So just want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Philip Ricardo Jr.'s the legend, local legend here. You know, Thank you for your service. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for these kind messages, these healing words. And like, absolutely, God bless you. Like, I just want to say how much I am grateful for you, grateful for doing this podcast and, giving us this wisdom that you have. And when I say wisdom, this is talking about going through the fire, right? His podcast was like telling me how he went through the fire, and it was so inspiring. So anyway, that's me. I hope you guys enjoyed the Modern Flow podcast. And the mission is to elevate the collective vibrations, right? Sharing wisdom. If you have a story to tell, please message me. Feel free. I know I kind of rushed through some of these things, but this podcast is something that I enjoy, and it's a creative outlet. And if you want to inspire and you want to do something similar, please let me know. All right, guys. Look forward to hearing you and seeing you in the next episode.
Yeah, so I'd like to leave with the audience that life is beautiful. It doesn't always seem that way, but it definitely is. I've been blessed throughout my career, obviously being on here, talking about my career as a, professional champion bodybuilder is great. I never would have thought in a million years that I'd even be able to do something like this and to have this calling, and I embrace it and I am humbled by it. But as we also discussed, we all go through many challenges in life. Like, there's not a person that I haven't talked to that's, been able to say, like, hey, I've had the perfect life. Everyone's had some struggles growing up, whether it's poverty, abuse, isolation, people have gone through divorces, deaths, just all type of challenges, drugs, alcohol, addictions, failed relationships. So when you look at life, you're going to have these ups and downs. It's going to happen, whether it happen early in life, later in life. I mean, it's probably going to happen in both, So I've been through it. I know everyone here has been through it. So if you're not resilient, and you don't have that kind of perseverance to get through all challenges in life, then a lot of times I see people end up feeling like they're a victim versus a victor. And I feel the best way to look at yourself as the victor instead of the victim is really a mindset thing, and it's also just having, an outlet that's positive. You've got to have a positive outlook. If you are consistently looking at this negativity and feeding your soul with negativity, whether it's from social media or just people that have rumors and drama, you're never going to get out of that rut that you're in that's making life not worth, what it should be. And I feel, for me, I look to my higher power, Jesus Christ, as a major part of my life now that gives me that positivity and helps me to be a better person and look to only focusing on that positivity, his word, prayer to him, because I know that he will be there always for me, because he sacrificed his life for me. And obviously he's not here on earth anymore, he's in heaven, but I know through his word and God's word that I can consistently look to that whenever I'm struggling with something or whenever I feel alone. And whether you use my source, or you use sources like friends that are positive, family members that are positive, it's good to have that, not to be isolated. When you're isolated and you're just feeling lonely and you're just wallowing in the past and issues that you're dealing with at the time, it's going to wear you out. It's going to be like a poison, a toxin inside your body. And I know you've talked about this on your other podcasts before, and we talked about it a little today, but I feel how that's really important, to stress to everyone listening. And just for me, I know that it's helped me in my life, because I didn't know Jesus during my successful run in bodybuilding that we discussed today, but I did not have peace all the time. I mean, I struggled a lot. Everything that I did, I used bodybuilding as kind of a smoke screen to hide some of the negative things going on in my life when it came to relationships, divorce, sinful nature. But once I found Jesus, things changed. My peace is there. I've had more successes in times of even trials. When things went bad, I still had him to look to, and then things turned around where I got a double portion of like blessings. So I feel like for everyone else, this would be another thing that helps, because not being isolated and having someone positive to look to will be a great way to live life, because like I said, this life is beautiful and it's all in what you make it. It's one of those things where if you have something positive and you're, focusing on things that are, edifying to you, you're looking on social media for things that are uplifting versus negative things of the world, then you're putting positive light inside your body instead of garbage. And that'll help you in all areas of your life. It'll help you. For me, it helps me in my, staying consistent in the gym. It helps me with my job. It helps me with my family, being a better husband and a better father. And I think it'll do wonders for everyone that kind of maintains and has that same kind of outlook on life. So that's what I want to leave. Persevere through life and be resilient, and life will be good. Thank you.